Today's episode includes my good friend Ninie from simplyninie.com, and we have a beautiful conversation about life. This is Rooted with Robert, reminding you to breathe that beautiful, joyous air and embrace each moment you find yourself in.
Garden grow, and it's something about growth that is beautiful, and if people could just see it that way, you know, it really is. I don't want to get repetitious. I forgot where we were going, but yeah, it's a beautiful process.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
And the thing about the inner wisdom, and I guess this is going back to one of the conversations that we had back at the garden center, was, and I do want to get into this concept a little bit more.
Okay.
The concept of God.
Okay.
And it's so interesting to me because when I met you, you know, I had this concept of God that was more like very religiously driven.
Okay.
And because of that, I was not attracted to the concept. Mm-hmm. But after I met you, and you know, you had your biblical study, and you know, so you did have this more religious but not religious at the same time, because you know, you take it for yourself, you take the meanings for yourself. And I think that's what made me have the connection to the meaning of God and what God is really giving to us. And I know for you, you have your, I mean, it's just, it's so wonderful, like, just hearing you talk about, you know, when you're talking to God, and you're talking, you know, you're asking things of God. And, you know, what is this? This guy is really trying to, he's really trying to hang out with me.
Yeah.
You know, you can stay, buddy, just
get
out of my eye. Just a little out of my eye. But whenever I hear you talk about God, I always, for me, the connection draws to the symbolic of the alignment with our inner selves.
Right.
And that's how I always see it, because it's like when you're talking, when you're asking God a question, you're really asking yourself.
Okay.
You're putting it out there so your inner soul can receive it. And this gets back to what we were talking about. It's you need to be aware of and be able to recognize your inner voice, because your inner voice is the one that's going to answer back. You're gonna ask the question, and your inner voice is the one that's going to answer it. But the inner voice is part of that God concept, I believe, because our inner voice is what's connected. This is all, you know, my speculation, or not my speculation, but the way I understand it, it's that inner voice is what connects all of us with everything. And when we tap into that, we tap into that rhythm of life, that you know, that law of attraction that's so popular.
Right.
And that's really what it is. It's when you're tapping within to that trueness of yourself, you're tapping into the trueness of life.
And okay, so where do I start? So I'll just start kind of like with my own, how I came to have my experience with God on the level as to where I am now. Okay. So rewinding back a little bit, growing up, I grew up Catholic, and to me, God was just a God of rules and a God of discipline, but not the discipline the way I know it today.
The punishment discipline.
The punishment discipline, okay? And although I've always welcomed it, and I've always, I guess, in a sense, tried to abide by it, it was still always kind of like having that parent who's always watching over you and kind of saying, now you know better, or
pointing the finger, like shaking the finger at you.
Right. And it's been in good ways, and it's been in ways where it's like, oh, did he just see what I did? You know what I mean? But I did come to a place in my life where I wasn't looking for, let's just say, the quick version, a disciplinarian. I wasn't looking for someone who's going to judge my actions. I just needed help. And I just needed help. I was just basically crying out in every area of my life. And finally, one day I said, and mind you, I've been working with coworkers who had introduced me, who were reading their Bibles. And I remember one of them were reading their Bible during her lunch break. And I'm thinking, who wants to read a Bible on their lunch break? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm going, and mind you, she was this, at the time we were in our 20s, this young, beautiful, hippie, you know, like average girl, you know, who did drink on the weekend and did her thing. And she's at her desk reading her Bible. And I'm like, Libby, are you reading the Bible? She was like, yeah, Ninie. And I'm going, first of all, how are you even reading it? Because it was the King James Version, and it was, and in my mind, it was like, thee, thy, thou, leave that for the priest, because I didn't understand it. But anyway, she had a new Living Translation, okay. So basically, it was translated in the language where I could understand it, which basically, at the end of the day, if I had to give you a quick explanation, it was kind of like given to me in quotes, just like how you just read that quote, and it resonated with you, and it was full of wisdom. The Bible was that translation that I read or began to read was like a bunch of quotes like that. And from that moment on, like, I even went to the bookstore and went looking for, I was like, what kind? She let me borrow her Bible, and went to the bookstore, got the same version, and I just began reading it. And then, so going back to, like I said, I was at that place of where I needed help and lots of disappointments going on. I said, okay, God, I'm going to give this thing a try. Let's see how this is going to go. So I decided, again, going back to discipline, I'm going to start getting up early in the morning just to read it. And I started getting up in the morning, quiet, put on some classical music, and just started reading. And the more I read it, the more I wanted. And the more I read it, the less and less God began to feel like a disciplinarian, but he was more like a friend.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, now when you hear people say, oh, God, like in a fearful way, it's like, God is the coolest person. If I had to use him as a person as opposed to a spirit. He is the coolest, most trustworthy, most loving, most understanding. When you get to that place where you say, okay, let's talk, let's do this. It doesn't go into, oh, you shouldn't do this. It's not about that at all. It's about, like you said, let me tell you about you. Let me tell you, like when you came to this planet, let me tell you all the things that I wanted you to do, I still want you to do. Let me tell you how awesome you are, and let me tell you, you're just having conversations, just like with you. It's like having the greatest conversation. Let me tell you, I started getting up every morning. First I thought getting up at 6 to read a Bible was just gonna like bore me to death. It got so interesting. I started getting up at 5:30, then 5 o'clock. I lived across the street, well, not too far from the beach. I began to take walks on the beach. I began to carry pen and paper. People would say, oh, Ninie, let's go have breakfast. I'm good. I've got an appointment somewhere. At one point, everybody knew I was at the beach and having these peaceful walks with God. And I'm not trying to sound religious because I'm not trying to convert anyone. This is just my experience for me, for what I needed. And honestly, I'm not let's just say, I'm not a Christian who wants to go around telling you about Jesus. That's not even what I'm about. I'm just telling you, when I was at a place of, I don't want to say the word darkness, but at a place of heaviness and confusion and disappointment, shut down the world, okay. God was like, let's shut this world. Let's shut out everything you've been hearing, everything you've been listening to, and let me let you hear a whole other type of music. And this wasn't, I'm not a gospel person. It was just, and if I had to, for me, it was all about Bob Marley. One love, let's get together and feel all right. That's literally what our meetings were. Let's get together and feel all right. And then the second one would be, again, with Bob Marley. It was like three little birds coming to tell me everything is going to be all right. And those were the two messages I heard every morning. And it was all about me. all about me. Who doesn't want to talk about themselves or hear about themselves? Not that I'm narcissistic, but it was all about knowing me in a wholesome, organic, beautiful way.
You know, it's just, I don't want to say you confirmed what my symbolism, but it's so funny because you were just like, you're really just like spilling like like how it really worked for, like how it happened for you, and like what it felt like for you, and what it meant for you. And that message is exactly like, that's the thing, like when I listen to that, it's still 100% aligned with the inner self. Because when you're saying you woke up and you're reading the Bible and then you ended up going for walks on the beach, like what were you really doing? You were giving yourself time to reflect, to be with yourself.
Exactly.
And that reminds me, like there's another quote I came across when I found the other one, and it's like something along the lines of happiness like is it's present when you are kind of just in that peaceful moment with yourself. And that's where happiness really thrives.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm not trying to oppose whatever concept of God you are still speaking in, but my understanding is still so much of God is really that reflection. It's that, because when you take that walk on the beach, when you're reading the Bible, you're really letting yourself learn about who Ninie really is.
Right.
You know, you're giving yourself the time. You're basically waking up and saying, today I'm going to, you know, find out who I really am, find my truest meaning. And you're giving yourself every day that time, that moment, that peacefulness.
And to be completely honest with you, like at the end of the day, do we really know which answer is the correct one? Do you know what I mean? Like, do we know if there's really a God, or are we our own gods? Because I've heard different versions like that too. Honestly, I can't tell you. He never appeared to me on the beach. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. But for me, I just know.
But you felt him.
Huh?
But you felt him.
But I felt him. And let me tell you, like, and he would use nature. You know, things would come to me, like, out of, I guess, nowhere. You know what I mean? And it would be, like, I'll give you an example. So one day, I'm looking at the geese. So I'm walking on the sand, and it's just me on the beach and nature. And that was the other beautiful thing. It was a beach that was untouched. So there were very few people out there. And although I would say after 3 o'clock it's time to go, but before then, it was just, it's like I owned the beach. You know what I mean? I was there by myself. And so I'll give you 2 examples actually. But I'll say this. Let me say a quote from the Bible, right? Okay. And one of the quotes are, in all you're getting, get understanding. So in all you're getting, get understanding, and it will set you free. And that is so true. Because when you get understanding, you'll understand, let's say if you have a boss who's not the best. Maybe your parents are not the best parents. In your understanding, you will understand. It will take you to a deeper place, that you'll understand that it's not just about your parents. There's some issues deeply rooted in your parents that they can't give you something that they don't have in the first place. And you can let go some resentments and hurts or disappointments that you've had. The same applies with your kids, your husband, people in general. And in that understanding, it gives you you get a peace where you realize, like, it's not that serious. Move on. Focus on the good. Okay? And keep it moving. Okay? So I wanted to say that quote. In all you're getting, get understanding. And that's what I got on that beach in the Bible. I got understanding in every area of life. Okay? Okay, so now, for an example. So one day I'm walking the beach, and the geese, there was a flock of geese, you know, ahead of me. And as I'm walking towards them, you know, they're just walking with their head bobbing. And they're all nice and slow, and they were not rushed by me coming. And it was like, either you wait for us as we cross, You could walk with us, or, you know, or you could complain or whatever and just be frustrated. But as they're walking, so one of the things I noticed is that they were not in a rush. Even though I was coming, they were focused, continuing their thing. Clearly, I mean, I'm sure if I seemed like I wanted to harm them, but they probably would have acted differently. But just me walking, I mean, they weren't disturbed by it. And then I heard God say to me, and then I'm looking at them, their necks were erected and their chin was up. And they're walking pridefully and confidently across to wherever they were going. And I heard God say to me, you see, like when you're out in nature, you're true to who you are. So therefore you're confident. Your head is not bowed down. You walk tall, you stand tall, and you feel tall. But when you get out, when you're out there in the world, and if you don't take time out to get away from the world, you're going to start walking differently. And a lot of people do. They start looking down. Their shoulders are slouching. That prideful, that confident walk is no longer there because the world just kind of, it tears you down. It brings you down. So it would be messages like that I would get from nature. Like stuff would just pop up out of nowhere. Thoughts that would, you know, like, again, like you say, it could be your inner. But for me, because I studied, because I got to that place of understanding through using the Bible, again, like I said, I'm not trying to beat the Bible over anyone's head. I respect that that's how I came to be. I respect that I came to be where I am was through using the Bible. So therefore, that's where the credit's going to go. Okay? So, now I could have, let's just say if I had chosen a different form of religion, and if I had the same effect with its different form of religion, I would have given that religion that credit because that's how I experienced it. But for me, in my place of disappointment, I picked up a Bible, and this is where I came.
That was your catalyst for your growth.
So, and that's where I'm going to give the credit to, because that's where it got me to where I am today. So, and another thing, I'm going to say it real fast to not drag this out. So one day I'm walking, and there were, like, when you walk the beach, you would see like these little miniature shells. And it's like thousands of them in clusters. And they all look like clam shells, but just mini ones. Nothing pretty, nothing cute at all. But when you start to look through the shells, you'll find a few, very few, that are, like, let's say out of 1,000, you'll find one that looks beautiful. It looks like a cone, a spiral cone, and some came in light green, different shades of green, and some came in like brown, and I want to say maybe a light orange too. And I remember thinking, like, I remember walking and I'm talking to the shells now, and I'm talking to the shell, and I go, oh, look at you. Where'd you come from? You're so beautiful. You know, of course I go to pick it up because out of 1,000, you only find one of those. And then I felt God say to me again, it's the same with people. You've got millions of people on this planet. And at the end of the day, when you go with the rhythm, everybody's all the same, just the average clam-looking mini shell. But those who take the time out, is another quote that says, many are called, few are chosen. Okay? Because God calls on everyone to become the best version of you. But not everybody answers. Those who answers or who seek become chosen. And it's the same thing with those shells. So there's thousands of shells, just like there's thousands of people. But out of all those thousands, only one may answer to get out of the rhythmic system of society to actually become. So nature would just give me messages like that, like when I would walk the beach, like. And whatever scripture I would read, it seems like when I would go out into the beach, there was something there to connect it to and confirm what I had learned.
Wow.
And I knew it wasn't just for me. It was just, it's like nature, God confirmed it through nature, what I had just studied that morning. Okay, so enough of me saying.
Nature, yeah, see, that's the thing. Nature always has a message, I think. And
yeah.
You have to be still enough to...
That's the word, still. Still.
But it's like, it's still again, but
Right.
in a different way. Still, when you're saying, like, when you're still talking about that, it's just, it's so beautiful because it's accessible to everyone. You
Exactly.
know? It's accessible to everyone. And like what you're saying, you know, God calls on everyone. We all have the inner connection to God.
Right.
And we have to tap into it, you know? We have to
There you go.
we have to look within, because that's when we find God. We find God in stillness.
Right.
And when we are still is when we are within, basically.
Right. And you become that thing inside of you that you know is there, but you don't know how to get to it. You don't know what to do with it or even what it is. But you know, we all know that there's something in us that's great. We all know it because we are all great. But you've got to shut out the noise of the world to know. And you can't hear the world's version of what greatness is. And that's the
Right.
thing with God. He tells you what true greatness is. And again, at the beginning, when I said the quote, do the best you can with what you have, when I said I was at that place, I had just gotten laid off from work. I had a nice savings when I got laid off. So the first year I got laid off, I had fun. Okay? Fun, shop, you know. And I just really enjoyed that first year of being off work, and I had the money to do it. And then one day I look at my bank account, I was like, uh-oh. Oh, maybe you had a little too much fun. And I remember in that moment of complaining, and I'm saying, okay, God, what am I going to do? Like, I can't even afford a gym membership right now. You know, like, I need to start walking. I need to start exercising. I need to do something. I can't even afford the park district membership right now. And God was like, you have a beach right across the street. And no, first I heard, go for a walk. Like, just go for a walk. And I'm saying, I don't want to walk in traffic. I don't want to see cars. I hate, you know, because again, I do like nature. So I don't like noise. So it's like, I don't want to walk in all that traffic. And how about the beach? I hate that beach. Like, I hate that beach. Like, it's so rowdy, you know? And again, I heard that voice say, the beach across the street. And then that's when I learned the beach across the street in the morning is like heaven.
Wow.
However, like I said, after a certain time, it becomes,
Hell.
you know what? Let's just say, I'm not even going to say hell,
No, I
because
know.
it's like, it becomes a party place for those who need it. Let's put it that way. Because everybody, I can't judge, because for whoever, it's not my style. So, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you know, it serves its purpose for those who need it, and it's a good hangout place. It's not my way of hanging out, you know what I mean? But it's fine for them. But I'm just saying, like, for me, I learned to use it in a different way, and in the morning, there's no one out there.
It's still out there.
And again, do the best you can with what you have. The beach was there all along. But in my mind, I'm thinking a gym membership. You know,
Right.
I'm thinking, I need this, I need that. The beach was free, it didn't cost me a dime. And it gave me, and I didn't have to go buy a bunch of outfits to make sure I look right while I'm working out. I went in my scrubs, my cap.
And it gave you everything.
And it gave me everything. Didn't cost me a thing. It gave, oh, look at that hawk. It gave me everything I needed. Didn't cost me a thing. I didn't have to worry about what people think. I didn't have to, there was no one out there. It allowed me to just be me at my truest form, where I was at the time in my life. I didn't have to worry about it. Because sometimes when you don't have, then you know people are judging you too because you're less. They make you feel you're less than because you have less. It wasn't about that. And in that place, I learned confidence whether I have it or not. Because I learned what is true. And what is true is something in the heart that no one can take away from you. No one can take away from you. All right,
Wow.
your turn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, you just summed up everything about the podcast, everything about, you know, everything. But
That's true rootedness.
that is, and you know, I think I was just trying to think of like, well, how do we get there, right? So that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to, and kind of going back, you were saying earlier, I'm gonna connect this. You were saying earlier that you know, you had all the voices in your head. You had all the other opinions and what everyone else was saying. And then you found your voice. You found your voice, your inner voice. And that's the goal, or that's the objective, is to find your voice, because your voice is what's going to have your next pathway.
Thank you.
I'm going to put this book there.
Thank you.
Your voice is going to lead you to where you need to go.
Exactly.
And so now I'm thinking of like, okay, well, so how do we get to that place? And my first step is stillness.
Right.
Get to a place of stillness. Because when you're in a place of stillness, you're basically filtering out 3/4 of the voices
Right.
from the outside.
Exactly.
Then all you have left is some residual voices that are stuck within you from other people. And,
Right.
But then when you do the stillness long enough, you can start to distinguish which one is the true one coming out.
Exactly. Because you feel it.
And that's the thing, is the voices a lot of times are thoughts.
Right.
But when you feel what, like, it's like the clamshell, right?
Right.
There's a ton of clamshells, but the one is sticking out. It's asking to be attended to. It's asking to be found.
Right.
And there's always, like, I'm not sure how that clamshell looked in person, but there's an aspect of it characteristically that brought your attention.
Right.
And I think with our voice, it comes to a feeling. You have a certain feeling that differentiates that voice from the other voices in your head. And, you know, I just think that, and that's something that I've been trying to practice, is getting still. Every day I try to get still at least once. And you need to. I mean, if you are out at all in public, you need to get still, because you will get drifted away. You know, and I just know, because, you know, sometimes depending on my work schedule, if I have time, I'll meditate before work.
Right.
That only takes me about an hour and a half maybe into work, until the noise around me kind of,
Cool.
wow,
That was cool.
kind of clouds. It kind of, you know, it overtakes you a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you need to re-still.
Exactly.
So I think that's just an example of the power of stillness, and the power of, when you're not still, what's actually happening to you.
Right.
You're getting overcrowded with.
That's the word.
Overcrowded.
Keyword.
Yeah, you're getting overcrowded with
Noise,
and the noise that's not suiting you. It's not fulfilling what you are supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
And what you're supposed, like, you know, it's like the whole should thinking. Like, you don't really want the should thinking.
Right.
Like, you shouldn't do that, because usually the should thinking is not coming from you. It's coming from someone else.
Exactly.
But what you ultimately should be doing is listening to yourself.
Exactly.
And then when you do that, you're just flowing.
Go.
You're flowing.
But I will say this about stillness.
Mm-hmm.
When you first begin to want to be still, every form of distraction will come your way.
And it will, yeah.
Every form of distraction will come your way. Like, I remember when I first started, like, I would wake up, and as I'm sitting at the table reading, then it's like, oh, let me start a load, because it's early. You know what I mean? Let me start a load of laundry. Or, you know what? Let me start something with breakfast. Let me at least start the water boiling to something. I mean, whatever it may have been, you know. Or the phone will ring. Or, you know, any other time, at the time my son was like maybe 4 or 3, any other time he's sound asleep, all of a sudden he'll wake up. You know, it seems like things will just come or arise to distract you from the stillness you're trying to create, and the focus that you're trying. Everything will come and try to take away from your focus, and you have to stick it out, and eventually it does stop, and eventually you get so good at it. Just like I told you, people would begin to invite me for breakfast, or my sister would say, I remember one time my sister called me and she said, oh, I have an electrician coming, something. What time is he coming? You know what? I don't interfere with that. And she got mad, but that electrician made it there, though. You know what I mean? Like, without my help, I didn't change my schedule. And let me tell you, and that's the thing. And it goes to that place, and it's not that I'm selfish. If anything, I've always been one of those people who don't know how to say no. But you learn that too in that place. You learn what to say no to and what to say yes to, and what's more important. Because when you're at a place, let's just say when you're hungry or when you're broken, it's the time to shut. And when I say shut down, you've got to shut down. And people are used to having you in a certain way. And that's another thing that comes when you go into that place of stillness. People are used to having you in a certain way, and they will resist where you're going. And they will resist the person that you're becoming because they're used to having you the way you were, which probably worked best for them that way. But you learn to say no to things that
don't suit you.
And you realize it serves me no purpose. It doesn't help me. If anything, I think it may have actually hindered me or hurt me, and I didn't even realize it.
Wow.
And so again, you may have friends that you used to probably go out with, and let's just say, for instance, with that friend, you did something that used to give you a certain kind of pleasure on the outside. And then now you're at the beach and there's a joy that you have within. You don't need any of that. You don't need any of that. So it's like that friend calls you, says, let's do this. I'm okay. But again, in that place of stillness, you learn it's not just about you, but you learn how to care about other people too, because you understand when you understand where you are, what brought you to that pain, and you're becoming, let's just say, holistic in a wholesome way. It's not just about you. You care about others as well. So you also know in your soul, in your spirit, when that friend call you and tell you, like, let's go do this, you're not going to tell them no, like in a stuck-up way, like, no, I don't do that. You may find another way around it and say, you know what, maybe not today. Like, I've got something else. But in your heart, you know why.
Right. I mean,
you know what I mean?
You always need that level of respect for other people.
Right. And, not make them, you don't want to feel like, now because you're growing, you think you're better than other people, because then you're not growing. It's not about that.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean? So, yeah, and all these things, and that's what I'm saying, all these things come together. You're growing, but in your growing, you're growing for other people too. So while you're growing, you actually are becoming a better person for mankind, for humanity as a whole, and there lies ultimate joy. Because when you have joy within, then you start to give that, you start to give it. And when you give it, you get it back in return. And then think about it. And then if you give it to someone else, then you made that person's day. Then they can make another person's day. Mm-hmm. And it continues and it continues and it continues. So it's like, what else can I say?
I think that's where, there's always the questions of how can society progress forward? And the answer is always, it starts with the individual.
Start with yourself.
And that's I think how it turns into a bigger picture is
right.
One person helps someone else helps another person, and it becomes this. I think that's where the love starts overtaking, because now you start loving yourself, and you realize that I think it's more like when you start being truer to yourself, you start loving yourself, you can start distinguishing between things on the outside.
Exactly.
And that's where the understanding comes from, because you can start distinguishing things.
Right.
You can distinguish love from hate, positive things that will progress you forward and things that will hinder you.
Exactly.
And when you have that understanding, then you can start helping other people, because it's like,
that's right.
You can just, it's like your lenses just change, and you just see things in a such different way. And I do want to go back, because I think it's super important that you mentioned this with the stillness, because when you're still and like the initial series of distractions, it's really showing you how much effort you really need to put in.
Right.
It's not that drive-through.
Right.
It never was.
Right.
It takes work, and that's like the clearest example. And you know, it's funny because, you know, with meditation, you watch meditation videos and they're always telling you it's normal that you'll always have thoughts come through, and yes, you know, that's exactly true, but what it's really meaning is you're now realizing how much work it actually is because of how much is actually going on
Right.
when you're trying to reach that place. And that's why a lot of people don't reach it, because they don't want to put that time and patience into developing themselves.
And you know, it's funny because I remember I'm in the car with one of my good friends, and we get in the car, and mind you, she's a talker, okay? So she's a talker, and so while she's talking to me, and mind you, that's one thing about me, like when we're talking, I'm not into my phones and to the phone or anything like that, as you know.
Right. You're in the moment. You're in the moment.
So when you're talking to me, you have my full attention, okay? So she's talking and I'm listening. She has this radio going on in the car. We're in the car. And the radio is just babbling and just talking and talking and talking. There's all this noise. And it was at a pretty decent volume. It's not like it was a low background radio sound in the background. And it's just, I felt like the two were competing. The whole time I'm trying to listen to her, I'm hearing this person on the radio just talking, and I go, "Can you turn on the radio?" And for a moment there, I could see like in her face where she was annoyed, like because I asked her to turn down the radio, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm trying to listen to you."
Yeah. Right.
You know, but at that moment I realized how people are used to. It's not like she was listening to it because she was talking.
Right.
But because people are used to having that noise. Like, I could tell she was bothered by me asking to turn down the radio. I'm asking you to turn down the radio so I can fully pay attention to you.
Right.
And yet, just because I said turn down the radio, like, I could feel that sense of, like, why? Like, okay, you know.
Wow.
But at that moment, it made me realize, again, we're going back to that stillness and the noise of the world. We have become so programmed to hearing commercials and thinking we have to hear them. And again, going back to that stillness and the lessons I learned along the way. I learned to create my own commercials. Like now I'm very, what's the word? Not delicate, but I'm very sensitive to when I'm in the car, like if I have on the radio, usually I have my CDs and my pre-selected music.
Caribbean music.
Right, Bob and I are, you know, vibing. And, but a few times, you know, like when I'll have the radio on and I'll hear a song and, you know, I'm into it, back music in the 80s or something. And then after a while, it's like, and, you know, not even realizing because I'm driving, then I'll go, what is this noise? What? And then I'll realize, oh, commercial. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And it's like, and then right away I turn off the radio because I'm not interested in you telling me, I already know what I want to hear. I don't need the radio or a pre-planned program or a station telling me what I need to hear. And people don't realize that. Like, everything is so preset. We're used to just receiving what the world gives us. Shut that down. Shut it down. And pre-select, especially when you're going, where you're a newborn into this journey. You have to shut all that stuff out and that's how you get to know you and create your own commercial. Put on what you want to hear, what you need to hear, whatever that may be. And shut out all that stuff, especially let's say like you're going, if finances bring you to that place of spirituality where it's like, I'm broke, I need help, I ain't got no money, like, oh my God. And you're in that bad, then it's time for you to start listening to like some CDs on finances. Why would you listen to a commercial that's going to tell you to buy more and to want more?
Right.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
It's just to give you a small example.
You have to select things that are, you know, it goes back to selecting what's going to help you and what's going to really push you along in your journey.
Exactly.
And no, you're right, because we are programmed, and it's like, it's almost automatic. You just, you get locked in, like you get from, you know, and that's why, it's another reason why I try to tell people that I recommend that you don't check your phone when you wake up. Right. And I know you're a little more old school on that. But, you know, a lot of days, you wake up, you have the phone in the nightstand, and you will lay in bed on your phone. First of all, you'll scroll through all the social media to see what you missed, which is horrible. Right. And then, or you'll go on your laptop and you'll surf the web And right away, like what's really happening is like as soon as you wake up, you're giving away your sovereignty. You're giving away your freedom to something else, and it's like you're waking up and your inner self is like, oh wow, it's like I'm awake for today. Like, what are we gonna do? And then you're like pushing it down, and you're overcrowding it with the noise.
Exactly.
The noise of and that's the thing. It's always other people. It's always other people.
Exactly.
And you get lost.
Yeah.
You get so lost.
And you forget about you. Again, not the narcissistic you, the beautiful you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The you that helps other people. You that
the beautiful you that you should be becoming. I'm not going to say use the word should be, but can become. Okay, or is waiting to become.
Waiting to become.
Waiting to become.
Waiting to be discovered.
Exactly.
To be uncovered.
Right. So, no, I thought it was a humming, but it's something else. Yeah. So I thought it was a hummingbird.
You know, this is such a beautiful day out here.
Yeah,
we are so lucky to even have the opportunity to take this time to be still.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, and it's like, so that's all I can. Yeah, I think much more I can say. But
I know. I think this is a great time. I think that we can kind of leave this podcast with a little bit of its own essence, and we can save the rest for something else.
Right. Don't worry, be happy. Yeah. But
you know what? No, I think this is a great time, man. I think we did touch upon a lot of great things here, and it's stillness, looking within, blocking out that excess noise that is really just distracting you and pushing you away from the self-discovery that I think everyone needs to start giving themselves. Like, we deserve to know who we are. We deserve to know how we truly feel, what's ours,
And I have to say, like, I guess in closing, when you say, gosh, I get distracted. Not that I got distracted, I forgot just that quickly. But when you were saying that's the thing with stillness, you're allowing yourself to become that person that you are. And what's interesting now for me is that I get, for some reason, I don't know if I'm just naive, I'm sure it's a little bit of that too, but when I meet people, I get to see that. Like, I see beauty first. And I just see beauty first. And it's just like, even when, like, let's just say when I met you, it was like, wow. Like, I just walk away with like, such a nice young man. Like, just beautiful in every way. And of course, we all have our, being Caribbean, we all have our ting. We all have our ting that, that we need to work on, but that's part of life. But for the most part, when you get to that place when you become, and whatever your gift may be, and because when you become fully, you quickly learn who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. And what is this passion that's burning in your heart, but you have to go through that, let's just say that training, so to speak, place. But for me, it's like, you just see people and you're like, you're just beautiful. You know what I mean? You just see that people are beautiful. Again, I'll say there's evil people in the world. And we can go, I mean, things happen, but there's just some evil. But for the most part, people are just beautiful. It's just life that take people to a place that keeps you from seeing that beauty. And it's like, when you're at that place where you found that joy and you found the true meaning of life, everything around you becomes beautiful, and especially people, even if they don't know it. And you just treat them like what you see. And in treating them like what you see, you get to see that part of them that comes out.
Like, oh, wow.
And you're like,
I finally be given that attention that I wasn't getting, like, they weren't giving themselves.
Exactly. But I see it.
So that soul is starting to shine a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So I strongly recommend to your viewers to go into that wonderful place of beauty and discovery and just embrace it, enjoy it, and don't rush it. If anything, don't rush it. Because I remember when I first started that beach, it was like, okay, God, like, woohoo, let's do this. And I'm already planning, like, in a year, this is what's going to happen. And no, I walked that beach for 5 years.
Wow.
5 years. But in the meantime, I knew and that's the other thing too. You'll also learn what you need to focus on at the time. As you're studying or as you're becoming, it's not like your life is going to be put on hold. You still continue with what you're doing, although you'll get a little bit more of an understanding. But at the time for me, it was about being a stay-home mom and focusing on my son and raising my son. And although it wasn't anything glorious, and it may not necessarily have been what I wanted to do, like on a full-time basis, but now looking back, it's like I'm so grateful I had that time to like raise my son. Like I watched that little fool grow and do all the crazy things a little boy do, and just I enjoyed him so much, as opposed to with my daughter. When I was raising her, I was working downtown and I was caught up in hurry up, drop her off at school, get in the car, get on the metro, get on the, then start work, then get back on the metro, get home, fix dinner. And, okay, no, help her with her homework. It was just that hustle. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you have moments where you enjoy them because you do outings, but I didn't have that special gift with her. Like, she got to have that special gift because at the time Ivan was, so if Ivan was 3, she was 13. So in her early teens and throughout her teen years, that's where I got to enjoy her because I was at home. But those early years, it was more about, come on, let's move it, let's do, following the system, the program, and what we need to do to get things done. But being at home, like with my son, I watched my son grow. I enjoyed him. And in the process, I also found myself.
Wow.
And that's it, That's
beautiful.
It. All right.
So basically, we'll end this with, everyone has a gift inside,
yes.
Right? Everyone has a gift that will help, that will give back to the world, that will give back to life, the life that brought us here in the first place. Everyone has that gift inside them.
Nice.
So take your time, be patient, but search for the stillness.
Yep. And what it has to offer.
Yes.
Definitely.
All right.
And don't be afraid of it. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you guys for
listening, right?
Yeah, thank you guys for listening and watching, I guess. Now
and joining us, right?
Yeah, thank you for joining us on this beautiful
wow, this
day.
is great.